Good afternoon from Hong Kong. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. I'm the founding board member of FTA HK and also the board sponsor of its InsurTech committee. My day job is with Jong On to look after partnership for its virtual banking and virtual insurance business in Hong Kong. Today is actually my pleasure to moderate the panel on a topic called digitalization of insurance industry. How can technology help in revamping the user experience? We're very lucky to have representatives from Hong Kong, Singapore, and India today to join us. So without further ado, I guess I'll just kick off our panel by inviting our speakers to quickly introduce themselves by telling us, how your company is actually playing a part with the digitalization's journey on today's topic. I have a biased heart with Hong Kong, so I would just invite Kane to, probably kick off first. Kane, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. My name is King Leong, head of FinTech at Invest Hong Kong. It's a great pleasure to talk to you. Basically, as a government department, we are responsible to foster the growth of the FinTech sector. And by that, it's everything from inviting energetic FinTech companies from all around the world to settle in Hong Kong, to working with the regulators to solve some issues based on feedback we get from the community, by inviting investors to get them more educated about the FinTech landscape for investment purpose. So essentially, a lot of the issues that need to be solved, typically we are aware of them initially, and then we basically bring along different stakeholders to help us solve those problems. In the end, the goal is to make the business environment a very vibrant and also a constructive environment for FinTech companies to grow. So this is our role, and this is a great opportunity today to speak with so many great speakers, and happy to share more in this webinar.
Sure. Can I invite Alvin to, share about your pet, insurance maybe, and how you guys have went through as a third license of the virtual insurers in Hong Kong?
Yeah. Thanks, Amanda, for the introduction. My name is Alvin Kwok. I'm the co-founder and CEO of One Degree. One Degree has two businesses. One business is we got one of the 4 virtual insurance licenses in Hong Kong back in April. And like what Amanda said, we launched pet insurance within a week. In fact, since April, we have 2 major revamps to improve the user experience in 2 months' time. I think that we can share a bit more about that because today's topic is about user experience. We also are launching 2 other products in August for e-commerce companies. So that's one part as a virtual insurer. The second part of One Degree is that we are also a technology provider as well. In fact, in July, we launched the IST Core Insurance Operating System. So that one is a software as a service model, modular-based, no code. So for One Degree, insurance companies and InsurTech startup to me as friends and not enemies. And we would like to bring up the industry together in getting the user experience substantially better. So, and we'd love to have more exchange on that later on. Thank you.
Cool. So now I would like to pass on to Fred, our section sponsor. So I know you guys have done a lot in eKYC, which is very important to the user experience. So maybe you can just tell us a bit more.
Thank you, Amanda. Good afternoon, everyone, to listening onto the webinar today, and to the panelists. My name is Frederick, and I'm the Vice President for Jumio in the APAC region. So who is Jumio? We are a eKYC service provider. We have been in this business for 10 years, having completed over 250 million online identities verified. So this gives us 10 years of experience, 10 years of data to tune and provide the level of accuracy that we deliver on this work. So our vision for customers really is that the digital economies represents the new frontier. So clients that we support looks to a global audience, different markets that are cross-border. And within this unified service that we deliver, verifying over identity documents from 200 countries and 3,500 ID types, it takes away the barriers from going into new markets and looking at how the business ought to be performing in a digital world. And of course, to do this, we have to provide the level of security that is safe enough that regulators can agree that this model will work within each market. So I think today's session will be exciting. Hope to share a bit more about what we have done in this space, especially where we can look to provide this to the insurance industry as well. Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, so next I would like to pass on to Kayvon. So you guys are based in Singapore, but also look after you know, a lot of insurtech in the region. So tell us a bit more about your team and yourself.
Sure, thanks Amanda, and for the invitation to speak here. My name is Kayvon. I'm the director for FinTech and InsurTech for Plug and Play based here in Singapore. We're a Silicon Valley based company. That's where our origin is. That's where I used to work, if you can't tell from the accent, before I moved to Singapore about 2 years ago. So globally, we are a early stage venture capital firm. We're one of the most active in the world, investing in pre-Series A startups primarily in a variety of industries. So Plug and Play is across 18 different industries, our biggest of which is financial services, both in Silicon Valley and globally. And so what we do is we're a VC in early stage startups, but we also do corporate innovation. So we work with large insurance companies like reinsurance companies, primary insurers, both life and non-life, as well as brokers or anyone that pretty much it's a major stakeholder in the insurance industry looking to digitalize or innovate, and we're their external innovation partner. So looking to connect them with startups globally and perhaps doing some culture change and design thinking initiatives internally. So really trying to become a one-stop shop for innovation, both for corporates as well as startups. And then we're based in Singapore, servicing Southeast Asia, ANZ, and India.
It's very interesting to, you know, when you mentioned about culture change. I think we will come back with this later on.
Sure.
So last but not least, I would like to invite our representative from India. So Chirag, you know, stage is yours.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hello from India. I must say that it is not the best of times. In India, we are going through unprecedented times as far as COVID-19 is concerned. And where I am right now in India, there's a red alert for a flood happening right now. So infrastructure is all over the scene, if you will. I'm probably going to be in and out of video, given the way the electricity is working right here. So sorry about that. So I'm one of the 4 co-founders of Discovery. Discovery is a 2.5-year-old startup based out of Mumbai and Bangalore. We are an insurance in a box, which is a combination. So it's an insurance as a service, if you will, a combination of 3 fundamental foundational blocks that constitute insurance in a box. One is the insurance product itself, which for us is nothing but a set of API keys that cuts across products, cuts across insurance companies in India. Second is the backend SaaS, all the technology that you need to manage end-to-end digitization of your insurance distribution business across channels, across carriers, all seamlessly brought into one particular white labeled SaaS offering. And third is we are a licensed intermediary here as well in India, which allows us to work with our distribution partners to enable compliance overheads that they don't have to get through themselves, which we can offer as a service. So to all three of that together constitute insurance in a box. We are agnostic of distribution channels as well. We work with mainstream insurance distribution partners as well as alternative distribution partners. Happy to go deeper into that.
Okay, I think we are losing. Okay, we are good, right? Okay, so thank you, everyone for your brief introductions. Before we go to individual questions, I would like to actually invite and remind all our participants that we have a Q&A section at the bottom. So if you have any questions that you would like to raise to our panelists, just feel free to type your questions there. We would address that as much as we can. Okay, I probably would like to start with Kane, with your role in Invest Hong Kong and your very experience in the InsurTech industry. So, what factors do you think that, is the key to facilitate a change in the insurance industry? Because obviously, I mean, personally, I think, when you look at compare insurance versus banking, the digitalization journey has been, quite moderate for the insurance industry so far. So what do you see, would be a plus or, a point for us to drive these changes? Or is there something that, as the regulators or, the end users that are actually dragging behind so that we can't, it's a hurdle for us to push the change? And also, what the difference between you see in the Hong Kong market versus others in the region?
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Now, I'm not an expert in astronomy, but I have to say it has to have multiple factors. It's almost like all the stars align to get the digitization in insurance to work. Because obviously, I think we have other experts on the panel who have been doing insurance for a long time. And I would think that for those of you who know about the Hong Kong market, will agree that, now, first of all, InsurTech has been around for some time. It's not new. So in China, certain parts of Europe, now UK, there are a number of countries that are doing quite well for a number of years already. It's also not that the executives at the insurance companies not aware of them, because obviously internally at the large insurance companies, they have the innovation team. They would know what's happening in other parts of the world. So they are fully aware of this. But it's just that, particularly in the Hong Kong market situation, again, Hong Kong is a highly profitable insurance market. And by and large, because there have been a massive amount of money and people from mainland China coming to Hong Kong to buy insurance policies. So, I mean, it's almost like, making money hand over fist for a lot of insurance players. But interestingly, a lot of insurance folks who've been making lots of money in the past, say 8 years, is that they're predominantly relying on the agency force channels. So they have a pretty sizable agency force and super powerful. I think even the CEOs sometimes will have to be very sensitive about things that they're pushing to make sure that they're not rubbing the feathers of the agency heads. So because of that dynamics, a lot of times when we think about the introduction of InsurTech, oftentimes it's being interpreted, rightfully so or not, that is going to be some sort of disintermediation. And when you have this kind of technology being introduced, then the agency force got a bit nervous. And as a result, they pressure, I think, the management team. And then most of the time, the project that would not go very far. Now, and why I say that this year is the sort of like unusual year where all the stars align. It's just that on the one hand, we have pandemic, in which I think the silver lining is that you are forced to do digitization. Now, secondly, the insurance regulator in Hong Kong, it's called Insurance Authority, actually was set up literally 2-3 years ago. People prior to that, it has a different name. So again, it was relatively new. So that's why it's a bit difficult for them to push through a lot of initiatives, simply because of the manpower. But then they've been able to get this lift because with the pandemic, there's a consensus in the market to get something done ASAP. So almost for the first time in recent years, the corporates, the agency force, consumers, the regulators have this consensus to move this agenda forward. So in a way, I think this is a pretty so unexpected, but nonetheless a positive development. Now, in terms of Hong Kong versus the rest of Asia, I would say that, again, Asia is just very heterogeneous. I cannot say that I know all of them, because obviously Japan, versus like China versus Indonesia, Singapore, they are all quite different. But one thing I would say that is quite consistent is that, as the saying goes, insurance, insurance, at least in the past, is never bought. It's always sold, right? So as a result, now we have, I think, the newer customer experience that allowed us to sell insurance products in a way that the consumers can embrace it better. I think that would be a big catalyst for that to get traction in certain markets. So that's why I think for places like China, obviously insurance had a pretty bad rap before. But then again, with the sort of the new way of customer experience, again, I think the traction from what we have seen for the sort of lower end small ticket items has been selling reasonably well. Now, so with that, I would want to be conscious of the time, so perhaps I should pause for a moment and so defer to the other experts to share with the rest of the group. So, okay, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, I definitely hear you about the power of agency. I'm not sure whether, Alvin, that, probably do you have anything that you would like to address as one of the players in the industry in Hong Kong?
Yeah, well, there's a great topic that insurance is sold, it's not bought, right? So, so indeed, I think there are a couple of comments that I have on this one. One is that we do see a lot of customer outreach to us. After we launched the pet insurance, in fact, we got tens of thousands of people who come outreach to us and ask us about the product. But having said that, the really interesting part is that the most common question that they ask is, PM me, please. Okay, so PM means private message me, please. Okay, so the thing about it is that, customers are really used to getting customer service on that, or sometimes even outreach and all that. But so what we do is we track the data and we track like when is the first time they come in, to what journey and so on. But the interesting part is once you really get them to try the purchase flow, try the claim flow and so on, then everything is autopilot. They don't really come back and ask questions. So I think on that, it's really about how good the customer user experience is about. I think that's the first point that I want to make. The second point I want to make is that, before we launch the product, no matter how much user research that we have done, how much user survey that we have done, but those are not real customers. Those are fake customers, okay? Those are the target customer, but those are not the real opinion, what they have in mind, because they haven't really seen the product, they haven't gone through the flow. Well, even if there's some test cases, but it's still very limited. But once you get to more than 10,000 type of user feedback, what you really find out is that there's a lot of changes that you need to make on the product to really improve the conversion rate, how to make it work, how to find the product market fit and all that. So what it requires on that is that you need to have a technology, have the system that is really nimble for you to make changes. It will be drag and drop, okay? So adding this element, taking out this element, and having different experiments and so on. So I think this is something so if you really that's what we told the team. If you really think that you just put the product on the shelf and let it fly, that is not going to happen. So it does take a lot of iteration, and technology plays a big role in enabling that user experience.
Thanks, Evan. I think we'll come back on this, but I wanted to invite Kayvon to help us to probably zoom out, from Hong Kong, because you mentioned that you work with, early startups from a VC perspective on, the insurtech industry. So can you tell us a bit more, whether you have observed any trend changes because of the COVID thing? Maybe this is an opportunity for insurtech to actually shine on. So tell us a bit more about that, please.
Of course. So I think that COVID, as many people are aware, kind of accelerated this whole digitalization process. I think in the past, when we've been working with insurance companies, there was a bit more of an experimentation view to it, maybe a little bit less urgency. I think people were looking very far ahead in the future, looking at, let's say, blockchain applications in insurance, or even like using AI for predictive analytics, which some insurance companies are using quite well, but some, it was quite new to them in terms of how to leverage their data. And they were looking at things that are more future based in terms of, instead of like core system digitalization like Alvin was mentioning, or and things of that nature. So I think the main shift that we're seeing is that a lot of insurance companies are handling lower hanging fruit right now, looking very much to the current business challenges as opposed to the future, which in a sense is not a bad thing for startups, because the ones that are adequately handling those and can help insurance companies digitalize in the near term future. If you think about, like, let's say OCR companies that can digitalize paper-based systems, or companies that can help with digital distribution or digital marketing, which we think are emerging trends. Those startups are going to do quite well, even in the current business climate, because they're tackling tangible business cases that are quite urgent right now. So even though we're taking a step out from Hong Kong, I think we're still seeing a lot of technologies that are like CRM based or using technology to enhance sales force or agency efficiency, help making their jobs easier during this time, so that businesses aren't losing a lot of business opportunity and money and near-term revenue. I think looking forward, another trend that we're seeing is leveraging, let's say, different platforms or distribution platforms like e-commerce is a very big one that's especially been emerging now in terms of increased e-commerce usage over the past few months, as well as, let's say, SME, so tapping into maybe some lending platforms, peer-to-peer lending platforms, to see if they could distribute insurance on there. So I think the trend we saw in banking was, how does banking become kind of invisible in the background? And I think insurance companies would like to do that in the future. One trend that I'm quite interested and passionate about that we're seeing in insurance is the overlap with health insurance and the health industry in particular. So whether we're talking about like remote patient monitoring, whether we're talking about telemedicine, and how do insurance companies partner not only with startups, but incumbent hospitals or pharmaceutical companies. That's a space that Plug and Play is going to be focusing on a lot in the future. There are certain segments that are really interesting, like mental health. So a few months ago, AXA published a press release that they're working with Naluri in the Singapore market. So I think we're going to be seeing more things in the mental wellness, mental health, stress, sleep is a big interesting issue. So I think digital health and wellness is another trend that we're looking at as well. From an investment perspective, we haven't made as many investments as we normally would make, but we're really interested in enablers. So startups that can help with, let's say, open API platforms or helping with payments, things that can kind of facilitate insurance companies to do business. I can stop there.
I think it's interesting that also you mentioned about the health industry, because I think, obviously COVID-19 is giving us all, stress on this. And then, obviously it's giving a chance to the health industry to think about how they can actually move into the digitalization as well. When we talk about the whole, like e-journey, I think one of the pieces that we can't miss is the eKYC, right? So, from a regulated point of view, cybersecurity might be a concern. From a consumer point of view, there's privacy are the actually, like hurdles for me to, whether I would like to trust an agent, a physical one, like a person, or, am I okay to do it in a digital world? So I would like to, probably pass it to Fred to tell us a bit more about how you guys actually overcome the cybersecurity or the privacy concern from your customers, actually convert them, because you mentioned that you guys actually cater to 100 countries plus, right? So can you tell us a bit how this actually can help to provide a better customer service to your users?
Thanks, Amanda, for giving the opportunity to me to answer this question. I'm very conscious that I'm sitting virtually amongst insurance experts, so I'll just stick to the topic of what I know best. I think, like all the panelists mentioned, insurance business is pretty much face-to-face. For the longest time, it is a sell-to mode, and that the whole industry has been built on that approach. Two things changed. One in the earlier couple of years where we saw digitalization of services, and there will be exploration of putting products and services on a self-help model, right, on web or on mobile. And in the last 6 months, things got even a lot more tougher, right, when face-to-face was barely possible. And how long this will continue will be a big question that we have to think about. But business can't stop. We have got to find new ways to enable the business to continue. And the whole concept then that what parts of the whole insurance business was the identity proofing element really important. That without that, there will be major disruptions, to the process, to the flow. So I think that this is where Jumio brings in an approach that was applied into fintechs, into virtual banks, into telecom industries where business can be constructed, transacted, and closed without the company providing the service ever seeing the end user, right? With a certain steps and processes in place that presented to the regulators, and that they are comfortable that this will not be a big issue in terms of dealing with anti-money laundering or CTF kind of environments, right? That this could be applied. And Hong Kong is one of the leaders in this space, right? With Hong Kong MA, since a couple of years ago, announcing already the plans for the virtual banks, and today we already see, of course, these services in the market today. So I think that the gap then is plugged into the service providers around eKYC, that it could fulfill certain processes within insurance that you need to be sure that the person that you're contracting is really who they say they are. You could have your insurance agent do a Zoom call with a prospect. At some point, you need to know that who are you opening the policy to and for, and did this person really consent to the policy purchase, right? And at some point, it's whether if you want to put your products on a website and someone purchase a product, then of course they need to fulfill that subscription registration of all the data that's being required. So these things has to be done, but it has to be done in a way that we don't further irritate the user that already has to, fill in 10 pages of documents, declaring hundreds of stuff, right? So you want to make it as transparent as possible. And I think that that's where this user experience element comes in. We want the user to submit something. We don't want to ask him to have to retry many times because it will really pain you if that a good client drops off after a few attempts because he couldn't complete some kind of identity proofing step. That would be really crazy, right? But the challenge in the other space would be that there's a lot of online identity fraud activities going on. And I think that where Jumio is different is having been in this business for 10 years, executing these kind of identity verification work from one market to another, from APAC in North America, in the European markets, seeing the trends of how online identity fraud could really affect business, and applying the kind of a security cover to ensure that these things don't happen. Using biometrics, liveness detection, verifying the authenticity of an ID document, and doing this not just for a single market, but really covering a global space, 200 countries, 3,500. Where your business goes and you want to sign that user from Vietnam, from Thailand, from the Philippines, from Macau, that vendor should be able to already deliver this part of this identity verification work for you, right? So I think that in combination, selecting a strategy to for the insurance industry is really quite vital. I see our clients in Singapore, in Malaysia. Now regulators may relax the conditions for identity proofing. So they say that you can mail in your ID documents and accept it, but there's always a time limit before they will up, the requirements again for standards to be complied with. So I think that like King, really now the stars are aligned. The conditions really puts all the pieces together where building up a strong digital strategy would make you a market leader in a digital insurance space. So I think that there's a lot that we can share about and to discuss. I'll be happy to take any questions subsequent to this. Thanks, Amanda.
Sure. Thanks, Fred. This question probably is more to Fred and King. How do you guys see if there is, or do you actually observe relaxations of attitude from regulators? Or I shouldn't use the word relaxation. It should be, a more open mind from regulators in terms of getting the, digitalization journey in terms of the eKYC or AML process to actually help the industry to move forward, especially with the COVID-19 kind of situation. Fred or King, anyone?
Well, maybe I'll go first.
Yes, sure.
Now first, okay. First of all, the insurance authority, you see, I think they started out with the temporary or interim measure of allowing this kind of digitized, remote selling via recorded conversations between agents and customers. With the previous deadline was end of June, but then it was subsequently postponed to end of September, to my recollection. So again, from talking to our colleagues at the Insurance Authority, they are monitoring the traction in the market very actively. And again, I can't speak for our peers at the Insurance Authority, but based on, I think, the positive feedback from both the large insurance companies, which have already got all this technology in place, to the medium-sized insurance companies, in which they're getting help from the local association, the Hong Kong Federation of Insurers. So in a way, I think people are magically become a much more, I would say, embracing of this so digitized way of doing business. So as a result, based on that market needs, I can see that, again, the IA are very, I would say, they are reasonably open-minded while protecting the consumer's interest, but then they also recognize the market needs. So I can see that as the industry traction gets or sustained this way, I think the regulators would be able to, I think, to help out by going with the flow, if you will.
Yeah.
So Fred, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I totally agree with King's comment that this is a time where regulators are quite sensitive, that things are still changing and how standards can still be maintained, but you can't really just put the same lid on the current situation because it won't work. There are, of course, markets in APAC where in the past, of course, a lot of the proofing of the individual user is done by the insurance agent. And you sell the contract, you have verified the documents, you did a face-to-face, and of course, today that's not practical. I mean, given that we have got social distancing and most of us are locked down at home, right? But insurance business can't stop. Right. So I think that the requirement then that to allow or relax conditions to have mail-in documentations, even around identity proofing, right, was relaxed to a certain extent that it can be remediated later. But at least this will allow us certain processes to complete. So I agree that these things are changing very dynamically. So where technologies can apply now can in fact give the opposite assurance to regulators that yes, maybe what we have been applying into fintech, into banking, right, is timely, that this can also be applied to insurance now.
Cool. Anything that you would like to add on, Kevin, from a VC perspective that you're seeing, the region, from a early startup, perspective as well? Anything that you would like to touch on about the openness of regulators?
So I would say I'm probably not the most qualified panelist to speak on the regulator issue. We work quite closely with the MAS for certain initiatives they're doing, but from a regulatory standpoint, we aren't too engaged. I would say we kind of defer to our core partners when it comes to so we work with like regional companies like MSIG and Tokyo Marine. We might be working with companies located in a specific country like Astra in Indonesia or Cathay Financial in Taiwan, and we're not regulatory experts in all of these countries, right? But what we do is we leverage their expertise on the local market, and they kind of let us know what might be the technologies they're looking for that would be suitable for their own individual, unique regulatory landscape. I think that's where we come in, and we understand what those kind of concerns or limitations might be, and then that would be part of the process of us finding the right partner for them to work with. But we don't, I think if we're looking at a specific startup, depending on where they're located, then we'll dive into the regulatory issue there, but it's on a case-by-case basis.
Right. So I would like to actually move to Shiran. You mentioned about your team has been working on a few pillars, and I look at the marketing materials of you guys that you working with bank as a digital insurance partner. So it would be interesting to hear about from you what's going on in India, especially with the COVID and the flood ongoing. How do you see, the digitalization is helping the population there to, change or to, provide a better coverage to the populations? Or do you see actually there is any difference of behavior in India versus other part of the world?
Yeah, great question. So wanted to start off by answering the India insurance story first, and then sort of, probably going a little deeper into, how that is playing out on the consumer, on the UI, UX or the CX front, and then sort of what's really happening with us as far as discovery is concerned. What are we doing about it, right? So first things first, for the global audience who is here, just to kind of give a little bit of picture of what India's insurance story is all about. So India is a very interesting, probably one of the most exciting, growth markets as far as insurance is concerned, right? We are literally 2% of the global GWP. That is, so in terms of market size, we're literally 2% for being the second most populous country in the world, right? Insurance is 50% of the global median penetration rate globally, right? So, and this is not even considering only developed markets or underdeveloped markets. Across the world, we are pretty much 50% of the global insurance penetration rate, but we are growing at 5x the CAGR, right? So when you put all of these together, it's a very interesting dynamic market, very young market. A lot of our tech stacks and insurance companies have been sort of come out over the last 2 to 3 decades at most, relatively new tech stacks relative to the rest of the world. A lot of our capabilities that you need as far as market access is concerned, growth is concerned, have been consolidated into market public infrastructure goods. You have heard of Aadhaar on the biometric side. You've probably heard of UPI on the payment side. All these constitute unique tech stacks that we can leverage as startups or as corporates or as insurers to kind of penetrate and start doing things that we care about, which is close to our chests for our own consumer bases, right? So, and leave the rest of the stuff, which is a little more horizontal in nature, to these public infrastructure goods, which is a phenomenal innovation for a country of our size. So that is on the sort of on the top down side, if you will, right? If you look at the bottom up side of what's happening on the ground with COVID, that is it's a very very interesting sort of a space. We recently did some analysis in terms of what is the COVID impact on the Indian insurance industry. So the industry contracted about 4.5% in this past quarter relative to the same quarter of the prior year. For the first time ever, health insurance in India overtook motor insurance. So motor insurance is a mandated product in India as against health insurance, right? So, and these are very interesting kind of developments that are happening right now. And the industry is already bouncing back. June 2020 was probably one of our better months in relative periods, right? So, at the same time, if you look at how insurance is essentially, say, sold, right? You either or bought, for that matter. Let's see from a consumer's lens. You go and either buy insurance yourself. Insurance gets sold to you with an assisted model. And then third is insurance gets bundled or attached on the back of some other purchase, right? So you get a home insurance on the back of a home loan, you get a device insurance on the back of a device purchase, so on and so forth. So fundamentally, these are 3 distribution channels of insurance. And what we are seeing in India is the assisted side, which is the physical interaction side, has taken a nosedive. But tele side has, really sort of, more than made up for those kind of lost volumes. So we are seeing an omni-channel distribution play in India, which is very exciting, and things are happening across the board. So we think that, I have a little counter view to the rest of my colleagues and peers on this particular panel, who have greater depth and experience. But we are in a spot in India where we think we can reimagine insurance, right? Just because the way it has been done in the last 20 years doesn't mean the next 20 years are going to look exactly the same. So we think that insurance should be as simple as digital payments. So for a merchant to accept digital payments, you don't go and code your own payment gateway. You go and sort of partner up with one, right? Similarly for insurance distribution. So we think as a Discovery, if you are an existing business and you want to add insurance distribution as a financial services layer, we are your one-stop shop, right? With a combination of the tech as well as the license play. to help you not only to penetrate and get into insurance distribution, but to scale across products, across categories as your business scales as well. So that is the value proposition that we provide as Discovery. And to talk specifically, Amanda, about your question in terms of banks, right now we are a 2.5-year-old startup, but we work across more than 10 different partner segments, from banks, NBFCs, payment gateways, payment networks, wealth brokerage arm, then ad tech, supply chain tech, farm tech, agri tech. So essentially, we are that digital insurance layer for any insurance, any business that wants to add insurance distribution, and we're trying to make it as simple as possible. So as far as our couple of cases, use cases is concerned, so recently we launched. So one of our customers is one of Asia's largest ad tech companies with more than 100 million DAU. They wanted to, they have an app that comes, embedded as part of 70% of all Android phones. And they have a content app which surfaces content within that particular lock screen, right? So they wanted to, bring insurance distribution and insurance purchase at the point of someone looking at their mobile phone's lock screen. So I don't know of any precedents where any financial service is sold by a user just looking at their, where the purchase journey starts by a user looking at their lock screen of their mobile phone, let alone insurance. But we did this in a matter of about 4 weeks. So that is where sort of we are kind of leapfrogging as a country, as a sector here in India, where these new unique user experiences, new consumer experiences are coming to the table, where different kinds of distribution sort of entities can be mobilized to help kind of democratize the insurance distribution, right? So we think that is our vision, to make it as simple as payments. And happy to share that some of these things seem to be working. Early days, but exciting days nevertheless.
Interesting.
Thank you,
also always a very interesting market. I'm sure there's a lot of potentials outgoing there. So I would like to actually, zooming back to Hong Kong to, pet insurance. So we talked about that earlier on, and I noticed that the pet insurance offers actually covers COVID-19 as well. So maybe, Alvin can tell us a bit more about, how technologies is actually helping you to shape the product in terms of, development and user experience, and also, how these actually specifically help to shape the flexibility of your offer to meet the, sort of uncertainties in the market as well.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. That's a great question on this. Well, in fact, we have been in the development work, product development work on the pet insurance products for almost 2 years. Well, we were founded back in 2016, and then about a year later, we started the pet insurance development. But of course, at the time, throughout the entire development process, COVID did not happen, right? So it is really right before the launch that the COVID situation unfortunately had to break out. So how flexible, how nimble are we really to address to the market situation become extremely important given the changing dynamics going on. So I think going back to what we discussed a bit earlier, how do you make it a modular product development become really, really important, whether from a pricing standpoint or from a technology standpoint, well, both for the internal system and for user interface side of things. So I think that's where we see.
Okay. Do you guys, look at a lot of data to help you guys to, modify the user experience as you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah, so that's definitely the case. So we really measure a lot of different things. We measure each step, each funnel, how much time does it take? What do people press the button? Like, where do they face difficulty in assessing, in judging different things, right? So I think that's one part. The second part is where the traffic is coming in, like what do they browse on other things, right? So I think all those things give us the insights about what the customers are looking for. So all those things are summing up in how we decide the priority of the new feature that we're going to put in. And ultimately, we want to improve the user experience and thus the conversion.
So we have 5 minutes more. I guess I'm going to wrap up with one last question. So COVID-19 is actually giving a big hit to everyone. how do you see technology can help to, like uplift the services level from, what we have now? So probably, I will go with Kane first. Maybe name an area that you see that would be, having the quickest, like modification or change that you foresee will be coming.
Well, I think I just mentioned about this whole remote onboarding. I think this is going to be something that will continue to play out. Now, obviously, the bigger companies already invested in it. It's something that looks simple, because I was talking to a major insurance company that they only had a team of 3 people, and I think they spent something like two weeks, and they somehow got it work. So it's amazing. But then the same cannot be said for the medium size to the smaller size insurance players, including the IFAs, because obviously those guys may not be as tech savvy and also resource rich. So to me, I think the biggest traction to me, which I'm hopeful in happening, is that with the help of an association like HKFI, they can help to basically purchase the related technology, and they be able to push it out to the medium and small size insurance. And by having this is going to fast track the whole adoption of digitalization. So it's something that it looks simple, but it's something is a very important first step.
Cool. Fred, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I think that principally it's really what the conditions that we're in now. We are moving into a non-face-to-face environment. You call it digitalization, but this is necessary. So where a lot of companies are already moving into strategies to beef up their own digital channels, right? So where eKYC now will continue to be relevant. But I think that maybe just to extend one more point would be that this step is not only at enrollment stage, but the same client that now has already purchased a first policy, he will come back to change data. He will come back to buy wealth. He will come back to do other stuff with you. And now using a eKYC type approach to managing this person's identity will make him feel a lot more secure and safer as he interacts with this organization. That it is modern, right? It's secure. It's in pace with what's happening. Because the worst thing is that you don't want to become irrelevant when the whole industry is moving in a certain direction. So I think that is the comment I'll leave with the team. Yeah.
Cool. Chirant, anything that you would like to add on?
Yeah, I think it's just unprecedented times, right? We are, just to give an example of how everybody's struggling with this. We had an insurer who came up with a COVID-19 specific product. There are multiple insurers, and it has been mandated by the government as well. So most health and general insurance companies are mandated to provide COVID-19 specific products. In the first few days of when this product launched, the pricing got revised close to 4 times in a matter of 10 days, which is unprecedented, right? It is unprecedented for any of us. So it just tells you that everybody is sort of, this is attacking a lot of people in new ways. But this is where the strength of underwriting comes in, right? So we are fortunate that we have worked with some amazing insurance companies to power their products across distribution channels. But I think the fact of the matter is that these are uncharted waters, and some of these things will take some time before they actually play out in terms of performance on balance sheets, because there is no visibility of any of these of normalcy coming in, at least in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. So that's where we are, and that's what the industry is bracing ourselves for here in markets like India.
Good luck. Yeah. So Alvin, anything you'd like to add on from a pet insurance coverage versus COVID-19?
Yeah, well, I think the COVID-19 is bringing a lot of mindset changes. I think mindset changes in the sense that, well, the e-commerce, the entire mechanism, well, we talked to a lot of logistic company. I think all of them, like in the last 6 months time, seeing almost doubling year-on-year type of growth. With insurance company, we have seen a number of them who come reach us out And one of the comments I hear is that, for example, for the claim handlers, they schedule the claim handlers to go and wash their hands every 2 hours because they are taking the medical receipts and all those stuff, right? So I think there's a lot of mentality, the mindset changes. There's a magic button like what Kim was talking about early on. And with the regulator, I think they take a much more open-minded approach, what they call as a liberal interpretation of the regulation. This is exactly the line that the Insurance Authority CEO is saying. So I think, so there's a lot, but this is the perfect time really to think about how we can uplift the user experience together with all those baggage, with all those legacy out of the place.
Okay, cool. Last but not least, Kevin, anything?
Sure, I'll keep my answer pretty short. I think the biggest change that we're seeing and the quickest change we're seeing is in terms of digital customer interactions, rapid voice bot / chatbot implementations if they haven't done so already, ID verification digitally, and things that kind of facilitate the transaction of buying insurance policies, submitting claims and things of that nature. I think something that we're excited to see, and we'll see how it evolves with respect to innovation and startups that enter this space, is that there's a changing tide from insuring tangible to intangible assets. And as work becomes more remote, insurers are going more to cloud services. There's increasing gaps in cybersecurity, or perhaps even internet connectivity for business. These big risks that not a lot of startups or even incumbents are handling right now. So I think it's interesting for us to see like where are the gaps in coverage that will emerge post COVID-19, and how do startups adequately help insurance companies tackle those coverage gaps. I think that's quite interesting.
I think time's up. Thanks everyone again. I hope everyone will stay safe and healthy in this time. But last reminder is that there's actually a chat room in the community chat under the lounge area. So if you wanted to network with our speakers, please join us there. Otherwise, thank you very much again, and I hope that we'll see you soon. Thank you.